The Buffalo Bills go the distance with the reigning NFC champion Eagles, but fall short in overtime. And the Sabres, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, shows up last night in a 5-1 victory over the Rangers. All of this and more on this edition of the Buffalonian Podcast. All right, let's go. We are back with the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Callie, and as always, I'm joined by none other than Dom Loss. And Dom, we are coming off a loss for the Bills. No pun intended there. Dom Loss and a loss, but we're coming off a loss for the Bills. Not the same kind of loss as that Broncos loss, where it really was doom and gloom. Yeah, they are 6-6 on the season, right? About a 33% chance to make the playoffs, according to the analytics. But that game was a statement. Josh Allen went crazy. The offense looked great, the best it's looked in a while. I mean, just before we roll into everything, or if you want to roll right into the Dom 5, whatever you want to do here, what do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough loss. Kind of a game they deserved to win. The deserve-o-meter probably was heavily on the Bills' favor, being ahead in the turnover battle.
Yeah.
Over 100 more yards than they did, a lot more time possession, and they won the field position battle as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a tough loss to lose on the road.
Especially to a good team like Philadelphia.
Kind of just feels like they deserved a better fate than they got, and yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's definitely, out of the 6 losses, I think I was chatting with the producer before the show, it's definitely a tough loss, but it's probably their best performance in a loss.
It is.
In my mind. So
you walk away feeling better about this loss than you have the other ones through the season.
It just having this loss be number 6,
yeah.
I think just means, and how it is in the type of season, definitely impacts the feeling after the loss.
Yeah.
But yeah,
if this was loss number 3, I'd feel a little more enthusiastic about it. But
yeah, just
how it is.
It's just a tough way to go. But on to the Dom 5
with no highlights this week.
Yeah. Playing not to lose must end. The Bills, just in the biggest of moments, just always seem to have fallen short this season.
Mm-hmm.
They're not always like this. I believe they're now 28 in the McDermott era in one-score games.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's 2018 on or is 20. I believe it is 27. I believe it is McDermott, not Allen stat. But obviously the 2 years. I mean, they went 2-6 in 21. I'm blanking on what they did last. I think they won 6-3 last year or something like that. So this year, obviously, they have 6 one-score losses, and just honestly, just not very good enough. Yeah, it's tough to go from here. I think they're 2-6 now on the season in one-score games, and
0-6 in overtime.
It's just the situation of the 20 seconds and one timeout. Feel like you got to give your star quarterback a shot. I think they were playing a little too scared there. I think the 59-yard field goal freaked McDermott out. I think he said that a little bit in his press conference on Monday about how if somehow they go there and they turn it over, like knowing that Elliott was good from 60+, they would have immediately been in striking distance to win the game. But again, I think that's playing scared. I think it's not so much the decision to kneel the ball, it's the use of timeouts, icing the kicker, using a timeout, I believe, on the 3rd and 17. Yep. They could have potentially had 3 timeouts in 20 seconds, which you could have done anything, and it's very easy. I didn't say it's easy, but I also think last week, before the first half against the Jets, we saw them really struggle in a very similar situation to try and get in field goal range, and then through a Hail Mary that was picked, and then it was actually a pretty decent return. We saw the Miami Dolphins game. So
yeah, I mean,
I just think they
risk versus reward at that point.
It just felt like they played a little bit too conservative at the end of regulation, played for overtime with a gas defense, and they got the ball first, and they couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, and I mean, at that point, you're playing for overtime, but since Josh Allen's been on the team and through McDermott, you're 0-6 in overtime. So at that point, if you You didn't call that timeout. They were racing the kicker out there, but you called the timeout, gave him time to group. You didn't call that second timeout. You would have had 2 timeouts of 20 seconds. You've seen a team do that in 13 seconds to the Bills. So, I mean, like, you can not easily, like you said, but there was a path to go down and score. Just even get in the field goal range and have Bass. I mean, yeah, he missed that one and got one blocked, but give Bass the opportunity to win the game, and then you're in overtime anyway.
Yeah, they just didn't have the trust in him. So
on
to number 2, please, sir. Hurts is better than Allen. And I'm sorry. Whoa. Sorry, I have dyslexia.
Yikes.
Allen was better than Hurts. Allen, I think, is a better overall quarterback than Hurts. It's not. This isn't a slight at Hurts. I also think it's funny looking at the statistics after the game that Hurts had a 96.2 passer rating and Allen had an 82.1. But if you look at their QBR, Josh had an 83.1, which is elite, and Hurts had a very mediocre 54.2. I don't think I've ever seen a QBR at 83.1 kind of outdo a passer rating. I think that's kind of it's kind of bizarre between the two stats. But
yeah.
I think just eye test wise, I think Allen was significantly better. He made 6 big time throws according to PFF, which is the most any quarterback's had in the game this year. I think he's tied with Dak for one of the games. I mean, he had a 93.3 grade. Hurts, again, I think Hurts played amazing in the second half, and you give a lot of props to him, but he was god awful in the first half. And I think Allen's stat line is, you take it back looking at what he was dealing with the weather, also with the drops. I mean, James Cook dropped a touchdown. There was a little bit of a bad throw to Kincaid. That was a big gain. There was multiple, other situations. I think Murray may have had a drop. Diggs had a drop. Gavis had a ball that he kind of could have caught as well. Obviously, the miscommunication at the end of overtime. I mean, not at the end of overtime, but in overtime. So there was multiple, like, the stat line of 29, under 60% completion percentage really doesn't tell the whole story. He played significantly better than the stat line suggested, also having 81 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Both good running players. And they're both fantastic quarterbacks. But I would think 31 out of 32 teams would want Josh Allen over Jalen Hurts. The only team that wouldn't is the team that has them. And, again, they're both elite quarterbacks. I don't think it's degrading one, putting one over the other, but saying that just because one person won the game, I think it's just, if you're going to do that, please vote Jalen Hurts MVP 1, and then please vote Lamar Jackson MVP 2, because the Ravens are 9-3 in the AFC. So, please, in order after the season, go to the quarterback wins and just have that be your MVP ballot in a row if you're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You say they're both elite quarterbacks in their own regard. Allen was Josh Allen. I think that's the only way you can put that. All right. I mean, literally 505 total yards of offense. He had 420 of them himself through the air and through running. 81 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. This is the Josh Allen you've grown to love here in Buffalo. And yeah, the 1 interception, which that was just, I'm going to be honest with you, good defense. That ripped it right out of the hands there. It's tough because I do this to myself. I watch the national media after these games, and everyone's like, oh, Allen threw that interception. He's the turnover machine. And I'm like, yeah, but when you throw the ball 51 times, you have 51 pass attempts, what are you expecting?
Yeah.
And that's what we saw. Was it Darius Slay after the game saying? Mm-hmm. He said Allen, that was MVP out there.
I mean, he had 60 combined touches between passing attempts and carries. Had 1 turnover. You're going to take those odds. I think another thing that was a difference in the game really is the Bills got the running game going late in the game. But if you look at their rushing stats, actually, the running backs, if you just don't have Allen in it, had 31 carries for 91 yards.
Yeah, I mean, there was an entire drive.
Under 3 yards a carry. Well, if you look at the Eagles minus Jalen Hurts, they had 18 carries for 120 yards, which is a pretty nice total, to be honest. Yeah. That's over 5 yards a carry.
Well, when they got DeAndre Swift really involved in the second half, that's when things really
actually,
took
that's
off
almost
for him.
6. So, again, that's what I just think there was more around Hurts that was playing better. But, listen, they're both elite quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts did what he did in the second half. Credit them for getting the win. But I think, again, this is the same situation of when I said Allen played better than Mahomes in the playoff game.
Yep.
The reason why I said that is because I thought Mahomes' running game outside of Mahomes was significantly better than Allen's, and Allen had to make more hero ball plays. And I'm not saying that Hurts didn't. I mean, that touchdown to Zacchaeus is amazing and all that. But
Right. He had to put the cape on.
I just thought
on.
there was so many more just moments for Allen in the game of just eliteness. But on to number 3. Special teams matter, man. I mean, special teams matter in the biggest way. Yeah. Sam Martin, again, just awful day again.
Did he go down to 32 yet? I know we said he was at 31
I didn't look
last
at that.
week.
I don't care to look at that. He had 4 punts for 42.8 average, and honestly, his best punt of the day was a 54-yarder that got returned 18 yards, so we did a 36-yard net on that one. So, yeah, awful day for Sam Martin again. I don't even want to talk about Tyler Bass versus Jake Elliott. I mean, listen, Jake Elliott, 59-yarder in the same direction Tyler Bass missed his 48-yarder. I do think seeing what happened at Tyler Bass's kick helped Jake Elliott, because you saw that Jake Elliott started his kick a little bit more to the left and it was tailing right. I think you saw what happened to Bass's kick, how it tailed right. So obviously there was some advantage, some competitive advantage there for sure. But
absolutely,
I mean, that's a 59-yard field goal. I mean, you miss a 48-yarder. Just gotta have to kind of have it. Would have put them up 20-7. Kind of would have felt like there was some momentum still, and all of a sudden the Eagles score, and it's a 3-point game again. The 34-yarder, it's a great play. I don't know truly enough about kicking, but it just feels like 34 yards on a block kick. I don't know if that's on the kicker for kicking it too low, and he just got to kick it higher, or is it just a special teams error? Either way, it's a special teams error.
Yes, exactly.
So, again, returning wasn't really all that bad. I thought Shakir was solid, and then he muffed a punt. He actually did muff a punt, so that was actually negative, and then he just picked it up. And Isabella had a nice return, 25 yards to the 30 on his one kickoff. But, again,
you need that third phase. And
giving up an 18-yard, they did not have a great day in that category. But
no, I don't really have much more to say, so we can move on to the next
one. It was Jake Elliott, good, my fantasy kicker. Thank you for the 5 points.
Listen, what a dog. 59-yarder in that.
Again, that's
conditions.
another thing I say about the Hurts thing is that, like, if that kick didn't go through, we'd have a completely different discussion, which is whatever. On to number 4.
Oh, boy.
The refs do the Bills no favor. It was a one-sided game. Calling wise, I think in the second half it got a little bit better, but obviously the first half, the missed horse collar, the intentional grounding, which was still a bad call because Gabe Davis was 2 yards away from the ball, so they just missed that one. That really did cost the Bills because obviously that was a 34-yard field goal that got blocked. They lost a lot of momentum there with that situation. Just a lot of bad calls. I know the 15-yard penalty, unnecessary roughness for the Eagles was a bad call. It was a flop by Josh. But at the same time, like, one bad call doesn't make up the tons of awful calls consistently around the Bills. And it's something they had to overcome, and they did a pretty decent job of overcoming it for the most part. But it was disappointing that it just seemed like it was very one-sided, and there were some obvious calls that did not go the Bills' way, and that's incredibly frustrating.
It is. And I do have something put together here if we're ready for that. I like to call it Bills versus refs, okay? We're going to go through, and if you're watching on the video side, you'll see it. But right here, there's a nice horse collar yanked down where you see the flag come out eventually, and you're like, oh, yes, they got the call. Nope, intentional grounding on Josh Allen. Like you said, Gabe Davis is literally right there. We have Stephon Diggs here. Lucky his jersey didn't get ripped on that. I mean, just being clearly held. He gets blocked in the back here, just out of nowhere after they're already in the end zone. And then here, this one's close, as Tony Romo mentioned, but we see Sherfield get wrapped up before the ball does come close. I mean, that one I can see the discrepancy on, and them, not calling that, because the ball was within a certain distance, but it's still close. But the other ones are just, I don't know, they're just inexcusable. And I hate to blame anything on the refs, because I feel like that's just the cop out you see on Twitter, right? Like, oh, the refs rigged this one and all this stuff. But at the same time, these are inexcusable calls missed. I mean, we go back this entire season, whatever team you follow officiating wise, just looking back, the Bills, that intentional grounding up the field where Allen was looking for Davis, and Davis was still running and stopped as the ball was in the air, and that's intentional grounding. Like, this game was a standing point though on holy cow, that was horrible. I mean, you went through it, and the Dom 5 right there on number 4 just had to put it on video. It's just abysmal.
Yeah, and then finally the last one, the question to remain: what happens next? Obviously, we're going to the bye 6-6. Seems like the Bills have to go at least 4-1. They can't go to 3-2. They have to go 4-1 in this next 5 games, which is a tough stretch. They really hypothetically can only afford to lose that game to Dallas, the only NFC game left on their schedule. Don't feel like they could afford to lose any AFC games, and it's a tough situation to be in. But I think we saw a lot. I think the result of the game will be negative, and what happened at the end-ish of the game and with the refs will always be a negative view. But there was a lot of positives. I think the first half defense was a positive. I don't know what happened in the second half. You got to give credit to Philadelphia for adjusting, but felt like the Bills kind of it felt like Philadelphia was one step ahead of them on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
But offensively, I think while McDermott gets a lot of hate, I think rightfully so for his, how the defense fell apart in the second half, how his in-game choices.
Yeah, his game time decisions.
I do think we haven't given him enough credit for the fact of he moved on from Ken Dorsey and went to Joe Brady. I think while that looked scapegoatish at the time, even I was saying it was scapegoatish, Josh Allen, the last 2 games, probably played his best. Not his best 2, but in consecutive weeks, I think that's his best 2-week stretch.
Yeah. It's funny. I just so happen to, as you're saying that, I'm scrolling through Twitter. Bruce Nolan goes, whispers, we should be giving Sean McDermott a little bit of credit. Yeah. So as you're saying that, I just happened to see it. So it's just funny.
Yeah, I think it's a situation where, I think we fault McDermott for a lot that's going on, and I think a lot of people's next question would be like, why didn't they move on from Dorsey sooner if this was the case? And it's like, well, it's a year and a half. That's kind of, early to move on from an offensive coordinator in itself. We could have a debate about that, but looking from what Joe Brady is talking about, I think we should give McDermott a little bit more credit for that. But at the end of the day, they need to get hot at the right time. And listen, they're 6-6. They got to go at least 10 wins. They got to go at least 10-7, and we'll see if that is doable. I think they do have the squad to do it.
I agree.
I think you just saw them go toe-to-toe with, arguably, you could make a case for one of, if not the best team in the NFL on the road in bad conditions that you would think would favor the Eagles and their play style. So they could do it, but they got to play their best football for 5 consecutive weeks now after this bye, and how inconsistent they've been, that's tall order.
It is. And like you said, I do still believe this squad is the squad that can get it done. It's going to be a question of, will all the pieces fall into place properly? Can you win out or drop maybe one game against Dallas, like you said, the remaining NFC game? That's going to be the thing at the end of the day. And it's just, the guys can do it. I have a good feeling about it. But at the same time, you got to kind of not be skeptical, but you keep your expectations where it should be, because you don't want to hype yourself up too much. Like, oh, we saw them do this well last night, they're going to win out. Well, I think that is a possibility, especially if the offense continues to produce the way it has the past 2 weeks under Joe Brady, and the defense, does what they did in the first half in the Eagles game really just shuts down offenses. There's a chance here, and it's not out of the question, but I'm not getting my hopes too high. We just have to watch and see how it plays out, because the AFC is so tight right now, especially the playoff picture for a lot of teams. It's going to be tough, especially losing so many games in the AFC conference. Games like the Patriots game where you should have won. It's just, it's going to be tough to kind of see where everything wraps up.
My last 2 points before we go to the Sabres. One, the miscommunication at the end of, I should keep saying the end of overtime. In overtime, I don't think it's necessarily on Davis at all. There's a similar type of play that happened in the playoff game against, was it the playoff game against Kansas City? Yeah, it was the playoff game against Kansas City.
Yeah.
The coverage was different there than it was in Philadelphia. I think Davis read it right. I don't think, but again, maybe in a situation like that, there is a different communication between the quarterback and wide receiver, regardless of coverage. Hey, go to the middle. We saw that, not quite the similar play, but with Knox game-winning touchdown against Kansas City. Maybe when Allen was pointing for him to go down to the middle, but he just still ran the corner out. I mean, it was a touchdown, but I think there might be a situation of kind of Allen's mindset where run to the middle of the field for pay dirt if you could do it. So I like that Joe Brady in the press conference today took the fall on that, but it just seemed like there was a miscommunication there, and I don't think it's fair to like say one player was in the complete wrong or all that. I think that's just silly and
just a little miscommunication.
Just got to move on from that. Second thing is this, and this is my last thing before we can talk about Sabres, is this playoffs that the Bills miss is going to be boring as hell.
Yes,
because you're already going to be without Joe Burrow. I mean, he is out for the year.
He's done. Herbert, he just had surgery, actually. He's doing all right, they say.
Herbert's going to miss. If the Bills miss, I mean...
What's happening?
That just sucks.
KC going to go all the way? Ravens going to go all the way?
It's just a tough moment for football fans in general, not just us Bills fans. Because at that point, it's probably going to be Kenny Pickett and DTR in the playoffs.
Good Lord.
Or maybe Russell Wilson or... God forbid Gardner Minshew. So
that's
at least CJ Stroud is came on and made it like at least 5 interesting quarterbacks. But
yeah,
already with the mess that's happening in the NFC, I mean the AFC not having, it's just that would just suck. But
right. Can I ask a quick question, real quick, before we move to the Sabres?
Sure.
So at the end of this season, Bills missed the playoffs, right? Let's just say that's what ends up happening for the sake of this conversation. We talked after the Denver loss, we talked scapegoat, like you mentioned, McDermott on the hot seat. The Bills don't make the playoffs. What does that future look like on this team? I want to ask you because I've seen it being talked about in a lot of places that they move on from him. People are already saying Joe Brady needs to be head coach. That's ridiculous. He's had 2 games as an offensive coordinator for the Bills. But where's your head stand on that? If the Bills miss the playoffs, what happens with the head coaching position?
I think Sean McDermott will coach the team in 2025.
Yeah?
Not 2024.
2024.
Excuse me. I'm blinking a year. But yeah, I don't think they're going to fire him.
I think him moving on from Dorsey saved his skin a little bit this season.
Sure. I just don't think they're going to fire him. I think what they're going to talk about is how they're 2-6 in one-score games. Saw it now with the Vikings who were in 11-0 last year, and that's fallen back to being under 500. I think they could convince Terry that, hey, like, we could get back to 500 in those games, and we're still going to be able to put a good roster up against Josh Allen. There's a lot of positives about the roster. I know they're in cap hell next year as well, but
negative $29 million
they could figure out a way to get out of it pretty easily, I think. And there's also a situation with the schedule. They'd play a second-place schedule in the AFC, so they would not have to play Kansas City. They wouldn't play... at the moment, Jacksonville. Yeah. I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm wrong about that. They play the AFC South, so they would be playing Jacksonville.
Well, they could march their way through the season.
But they wouldn't be playing Kansas City. They would not be playing Baltimore. Heck, they would avoid playing Cincinnati. They would play the NFC West, and then they would currently play the Vikings in the NFC North as the 17th game. Mm-hmm. So the schedule is actually pretty favorable. They'd play Denver and I'm blanking. I think Pittsburgh is the second-place team in the AFC North. It might still be Cleveland, but one of those 2 teams that doesn't like you wouldn't play Joe Burrow either. So I think they could talk. I don't think they. Listen. As much as I'm on a 6 out of 10, I think I would fire McDermott. I don't think they're going to do it.
Has it simmered down in your head a little bit from what it was a couple weeks ago?
I mean, I don't know. I think that was just an emotional reaction. I think it's built a little. It's actually built a little bit more. Yeah. But I'm a 6 out of 10, but I don't think they're going to do it. Because I think they could convince Terry that it's just a down year, sucks. It's unfortunate for us fans, but they could bounce back very easily on 24. Obviously, if they don't do that, I think he's good as gone.
Yeah.
But also, it just comes down to the situation of who would replace. I hate being the guy like a lot of other.
No, but you're firing your defensive coordinator.
A lot of beat report. I don't care about that. A lot of beat reporters are talking about how be careful what you wish for. I don't care that much about that. It would just be like, I don't think hiring a first-year off head coach is really a great idea. I would want someone who's a little bit more experienced. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you could get Jim Harbaugh from Michigan, but. I guess Ben Johnson or the offensive coordinator from Houston, who would be a first year, I think that's dangerous, but maybe more offensive mind. But, Yeah, I don't think they're going to fire him regardless. I guess as long as they go like 6-11, yeah, I think he's gone. But if they're competitive down the stretch and they miss out by a game, go 9-8, 10-7.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of right there with you on that, honestly. It's died down a little bit in my my head. But moving on to the Sabres here, we'll talk some more. Well, actually, just a housekeeping note, we're taking a bye week as well from betting on the Bills. So we'll be back next Friday to cover them and some other games from around the slate. So we're gonna join the Bills in the bye week. We're gonna move on to the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, last time we talked, let's just run through the results. Lost 4-3 to the Capitals in overtime. They won against the Penguins 3-2 on Friday. On Saturday, they lost to the Devils 7-2. That was rough. And then last night, they beat the Rangers 5-1 with UPW in net. So, I mean, I guess I know we always start these segments off, but like, after a week like this, are they 500? They're 10-10-1. Is that what they are?
10-10-2.
10-10-2. Right, 2. What are you thinking?
They still got to hit another gear. 500 is not good enough, but it's not the worst week in the world. But to blow a game against a bad team in Washington on the road is tough. And then to get curb stomped by New Jersey is just very unacceptable. But it's not the worst week in the world. But we have a new kind of thing with the Sabres, better organization for us. Not down 5 because 5 takes would be a lot, but down 3, I don't know. Down 3/5, I don't know. I'll think of a name, but 3 takes. Number 1. Benson deserved to stay. Obviously, he had that sick goal against Washington, probably the greatest first career goal I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
Obviously, coming from a biased Sabres fan. But he deserved to stay. I think you could really see his two-way game. I really liked the line of Cousins, Peterka, and Benson yesterday against the Rangers. And yeah, I think him playing at this high level, having that two-way game, it's very similar to what Jacqueline was doing last year. So I think that's very exciting. Obviously, maybe not have the points or even the goals, obviously only having 1, but I think those will eventually come for him, and they're playing very well with him on the ice. So I think, and he also played a lot in the third period in a 1-goal game for most of that third period yesterday against the number 1 team in the NHL, I believe, in points. So very impressed by him at such a young age, and very excited to see the future of him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that first career goal for him, that just, I don't know, makes a grown man want to cry, right? You know, right through the legs. It was just, that's what you want to see. He did deserve to stay. They activated the first year of his rookie contract, technically, with him playing that 10th game, but that's what you want to see. You want to bring the young guys up, give them the opportunities. Don't play them for 4 minutes and then send them out the door, back down. Listen, I'm happy with Benson. I think he's been great, so I'm right with you on that.
Yeah, and on to number 2. Lineup choices are amateur level. I don't understand what's going on. Ryan Johnson didn't play a lot in the third period. I'm very concerned that they're going to move on and put him down to Rochester or do something stupid. Yoki got scratched the other day. I think it was a healthy scratch, but I think they tried to they tried to make that a little bit more of he was sick and they needed conditioning. They scratched Kulik yesterday to run 11-7, citing that he needed to play 3 games in 4 games. 3 games in 4 days, excuse me, but Rosine was doing the same thing, so I don't fully understand that. Again, trying to stay positive with this, but it just seems like it's not that hard to run a 12-6, and they're just kicking. They made a choice against Benson that really that he forced their hand, and they refused. They just refused to make a very difficult decision of which one of the defensemen they're going to scratch, and as long as it's not Ryan Johnson, Darlene, and Power, I'm fine with it. Like, I don't think Samuelson's played very well this year. That contract is yeesh.
No, not good.
I could care less about Clifton. Had one of the worst games I've ever seen a defenseman play against New Jersey. Everyone knows I'm not a big Eric Johnson fan. I actually don't mind Yoki Haru this year. I thought he played really well, actually, against the Rangers. So, actually, I would be bothered if Yoki Haru would be the one that would be scratched. But pick one of the 3 and just scratch him, and let's play the guys. I give credit to Olsen. He's turned around and played very hard. Maybe he's working his trade value up so they could trade him.
Golofson.
But I just run a 12-6. This isn't that difficult. please just run a 12-6. And then when you get Greenway back, maybe we could see Rosine and Kulik stay and have maybe they send down Levi to open up that roster spot. I don't know if he's actually an IR or if Tage comes back and we could rotate 21, 28. Obviously, 28's already injured, but 21 could get some time off also, to get his wheels going again. So, but just line decisions. I don't understand why they keep running 11-7. Just please run a 12-6 and just make a tough decisions.
Yeah, no, 12 and 6 should be what they're doing. We texted, in a group chat last night. A lot of our, high school friends, just no one seems to understand what exactly is going on. You're right, amateur level. And the fact that we're even saying Ryan Johnson can be sent down is frustrating to me because genuinely he's shown himself out here. He's proven that he was NHL ready. It's gonna come with growing pains, but we make the joke, right? They bring him up, he plays well. Wow, it's almost like he's been NHL ready, and that's when he's been touted as since being picked up, right? Like that's the whole point. You don't want to see guys like that go down. And you're right, Olofsson might be just working up his trade value. Maybe they're going to try and get something for him. But I think these lineups definitely 12 and 6 is the way to go. And let's go to at least amateur pro, something like that. I don't know. Maybe not full pro. We're not going to expect the world, but let's bump it up a little bit. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and then my last one, my third one is I just don't know if they have the pressure are they trying to win? Do they have the pressure to win? I think maybe us as fans have I don't even know if higher expectations is right because the team keeps talking about they're a playoff team, but it's a situation maybe very similar with the Bills where if they miss the playoffs, are they really going to clean house? If the Sabres miss the playoffs, are they really going to clean house? I think every fan would say yes. Maybe they don't have that pressure. I don't know, but it just feels like UPL, as much as I doubted him and I thought they should move on from him, goalies are voodoo. He deserves to have the crease. That's the reason why they kept 3 goalies. Is they didn't know which one was going to take the crease. He took the crease. He deserves the majority of the starts. I think that easily clears Comrie to have kind of a backup role, and I think that easily shows that Levi needs to go down to Rochester. Again, he's not going to get the opportunity to develop, and he's also just not playing well enough to help the team win. Again, are you trying to win, or are you trying to, step on feathers, walk on eggshells, as someone would say? Yeah. That's another easy decision I would make. Obviously, maybe they're waiting for some of the forwards to get injured. To come back from injury. Mm-hmm. Again, with the defense, it's just the frustration of this team is that they're just so focused on just not hurting people's feelings. It feels like that they just need to do what needs to be done with the whole Levi and goaltending situation, the defense situation, playing the younglings in the forward group. It's very frustrating. I think yesterday we saw a really nice change of pace, more a high event type of game. They were getting the saves from UPL, which they weren't getting last year. I think that's the difference, is that this year they haven't been able to produce offense because I think they've just been so focused defensively. And that yes, as fans, do they need to tone it down maybe a little bit, but they toned it down so much where their offense is they're generating at a bottom 5 pace.
Yeah.
And they just need it. Their biggest strength is their rush offense. Do they need to get better defending rushers? Sure. But they're getting the saves this year, and I think they need to go back maybe into that and go heavier into rush offense. This is a question if they're trying to win or not. And that's incredibly frustrating having to say out loud, but it's true.
It's a valid question. And at this point, you're right. They have dialed back the offense to the point where they are producing at a bottom 5 level. That offense, yeah, you used to give some stuff up, right? With that high-flying, high-excitement, fast, super fast-paced offense. You gave up some defensive stuff, right? At this point, that's what made the team competitive. That's what made the team fun to watch. That's what made the team gave him that edge, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And now you're taking that away at that point to help out, to focus on the defense. But you got to go back to the formula that was winning you games last year, getting you a game out of the playoffs, right? You're 1 game out at the end of last season. You're 500 right now, 10-10-2. I think you got to pick up the pace on the offense a little bit and get the production going again. And of course, once everyone's healthy again, I think there will be a production boost if they come back out at full strength. So, but I'm with you on that. They got to dial that up a little bit to bring it back.
Yep. And my final bonus take: Patrick Kane signed with the Red Wings, 1 year, $2.75 million. Again, pretty pleased that it's not with the Sabres.
Guess what, though? We're going to a game December 5th, and that just so happens to be the Red Wings game.
Yeah, I don't know when he's supposed to come back. Obviously, people haven't done well with the hips resurfacing surgery.
Yeah.
So I have Nick Backstrom. So good luck to you, I guess, Patrick, but not too much luck because you're playing for a division rival.
Yep.
Happy that he didn't sign with the Sabres.
Me as
and
well.
They didn't go in, and I would assume that they had a 2-year, multi-years, and they gave it to him. I think he might be a Sabre, but I guess good for Kevin Adams for not doing that. And our last part of this segment will be that the Sabres play in St. Louis on Thursday, in Carolina on Saturday, and at home against Nashville on Sunday. Should be an exciting 3-game slate. Kind of need to get rolling here. Obviously, Joe alluded to it. They're back to being a 500 team, but 82 points is not going to make the playoffs. You got to get at least, I think, another 15-plus points than that. So they got to start making it up and going on a little bit of a run here. And I would say my MVP of the week will be Zach Benson. I think he pots 3 goals in 2 games, and I really liked how that line played. I think Cousins is kind of lost the face shield or whatever that was. I don't know what that was. What's it called? A bubble?
A bubble?
Was it really called a bubble?
Yikes.
The bubble popped apparently, and he doesn't have it anymore, which is great.
Yeah.
I think Paterka's putting easily. You can make a case they're second best forward behind Milstat. And I really like how Benson's playing. So I really like that line. I think Benson's going to have a breakthrough week here.
I like it. I hope Benson has a breakthrough week and has a big one. We saw, like we've talked about, the offense is kind of slowed down to what it was. We saw it last night. Tucky got in on the action. Give me Tucky for my MVP. He's going to have big few games here. I think he comes out as a multi-goal scorer, especially in the Blues game, Hurricanes. He's going to be a big part, especially on that top line. Middlestat, too. There are a couple guys you could go with here, but I'm going with Tucky here. I think he's going to have a big week. And then next Tuesday, we'll chat about the Bills. Well, no, we won't chat about anything with the Bills. We'll probably talk primarily Sabres and how the AFC is looking after next week. And then we go to that Red Wings game. Maybe we'll see Patrick Kane, how long it takes him to go. We don't know. Probably not, I would assume. But it shall be interesting. But I think it's time we chat for the last few minutes here on the Buffalonian Bowl broadcast. So if you are a follower on the video side of things, on the YouTube page, you may have seen us go live on Saturday. It was Saturday morning?
Yeah.
Saturday morning. So you may have seen us go live last Saturday morning for a turkey bowl, a nice flag football Thanksgiving game that we titled the Buffalonian Bowl. Underestimated the temperature and how batteries do in the temperature, so we only got to halftime on the broadcast. But that's something we will be doing in the future, and we saw some positive numbers on it too. People commenting they liked it, so I'm all for that. And if you guys like it, comment. And Dom, you played in it. What'd you think?
Honestly, we got pretty good weather, all things considered. It was just cold, but I think kind of expect that this time of year. Maybe we'll do one over the summer that we'll have to deal with the heat.
Yeah. Be like Miami.
Yeah, it was a fun time. Obviously, we got killed. Credit to the Trash Pandas. They were more prepared and just actually played better than us. But as I always allude to, multiple things can be true at once. They played very well and were more prepared, and we just didn't get in the right, mindset of, who to attack.
Did you say you played complimentary football?
No, we didn't. We just we focused maybe a little bit too much on plays. Obviously, turnovers hurt us. Some miscommunications defensively. So, credit to them. They played well again, but it's always a situation where I always like, as Joe Brady said, point the thumb at yourself. We needed to do a lot better, and I made some mistakes defensively, letting guys get behind me on end zone plays, drop the ball. Can't happen, and yeah.
Alrighty. Well,
accountability, that was refreshing.
There you go. At least you weren't like Sean McDermott on the podium where he actively says so much without saying a thing. But
it's a skill. I think that's
it is a skill. It's a coach skill.
It's a PR skill.
It
I'm
is.
gonna be honest.
It is. So we'll get you there. We'll get you there in the next Buffalonian Bowl. But without further ado, that's going to do it for this edition of the Buffalonian Podcast. Thank you to our producer, Mooch, Michael Loss. We really appreciate it. Everything you do, normally getting the highlights going, but we did not this week. Even though we definitely could have. They had a really good game offensively, but we got to stay consistent. A loss equals no highlights. The refs were the highlights of today. But Dom, no Friday. I just want to point that out again. No betting on the Bills this week. We're taking the bye. Dom, how do you always end these?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills. Enjoy the bye. Enjoy football. We'll see you next Tuesday.